André Rieu once called Mirusia Louwerse Australia's angel. Now, after more than a decade of performing with Rieu and the Yan Street Orchestra in big shows and on world stages, Louwerse has a secret about the king of waltzes that has fans going crazy. Mirusia is finally talking about the teacher who helped her career and made her an essential part of Rieu's shows. She has decided to share a surprising side, a confession that might help explain what happened. For years, fans have only dared to say finally Mirusia Louwerse tells the truth about André Rieu. Mirusia Louwerse, known as the Angel of Australia, changed classical music during her amazing 10 years as André Rieu's leading lady. Her stunning performance of Schubert's Ave Maria captivated audiences all over the world, and the song became the most played funeral song in Belgium and ranked third in the Netherlands. Louwerse has released 12 albums, and her most recent classical masterpiece, Classic, reached #1 on the Australian Classical and Declassical Cross charts in February 2024, said that Mirusia was the youngest person to win the prestigious Dame Jones Sutherland Opera Award in 2006. She says that working with André Rieu's orchestra has been like a never-ending fairy tale. Notable performances have come from this magical partnership, such as the 2013 coronation concert for King William Alexander of the Netherlands. André Rieu found Mirusia through an unexpected phone call. The amazing journey between Mirusia Louwerse and André Rieu's journey started with an email from a proud aunt, not a big audition or industry connections. Their first meeting is proof of how luck can change the course of a musician's career. The reason Mirusia is famous around the world is because her parents are Dutch. She was born in Australia to Dutch parents and has tried to stay close to her family's home country. This connection would change her life when her Aunt Elle from the Netherlands helped her get her big break. In early 2007, André Rieu was on TV and said he needed a new soprano soloist. Without telling her niece, she acted quickly and sent the conductor an email about a talented relative in Australia. The email had a link to Mirusia's website, contact information, and a strong pitch about why the young soprano would be perfect for his orchestra. My aunt found out that André was looking for a singer, so she sent him an email telling him to check out my website. Mirusia talks about this unexpected help, and André Rieu showed his natural ability for many classical music directors send these kinds of emails to their assistants, but Rieu read them himself and made a decision right away that would change both of their careers forever. It was the perfect time for Mirusia. She had just graduated from the Queensland Conservatorium of Music at Griffith University in 2006, and that same year became the youngest person to win the prestigious Dame Jones Sutherland Opera Award. She was at a turning point in her musical career. No one thought that one of the best violinists and conductors in the world would be on the other end of the line when Mirusia's father picked up the phone. He thought someone was playing a joke on him right away. Within an hour of reading the letter, he called me at home in Australia. My dad answered the phone and thought it was a joke. Mirusia said that Mia was just as shocked when she answered the phone while I was talking to him and told him, "I love your voice and I want to tour the world with you." I thought, this is a joke, who is he? She laughed as she remembered how their shared Dutch background helped prove the caller was real. They started speaking Dutch to each other, and it became clear that the caller was real. They started talking in Dutch and started a relationship that would last for decades and take Mirusia all over the world. Reports say André's request surprised her even more than the unexpected call. He asked if she could come to Merrick for an audition the next day, but Australia was too far away from the Netherlands for that to work. Mirusia said she would come as soon as possible and asked me to come to Mary for a trout the next day. Since I lived in Brisbane, it took an extra day, but she kept her word and flew to the Netherlands just 2 days after that life-changing call. At the time, Mirusia didn't know much about André Rieu's rising fame around the world. I only knew him because my mother worked at a Dutch retirement village, she says. He was still pretty unknown in Australia at the time. Great chance in front of her. They hit it off as soon as they met at his studio. We clicked right away, before I even started singing. Mirusia remembers this quick connection laid the foundation for their successful 10-year musical partnership. Mia flew back to Australia less than a week after hearing his voice for the first time. She had a deal to tour the world with André Rieu and his Jan Straw Orchestra. An email from her Dutch aunt set off a series of amazing events that turned the talented young singer into the angel of New Zealand. Mirusia talks about the tough interview process that shocked her. When Mirusia said yes to André Rieu's surprise request, It led to an audition that was unlike any other in classical music. What happened after their phone call showed how Rieu finds talent in a unique way and made Mirusia Louwerse famous all over the world. When Mirusia answered André Rieu's call, she was faced with a big problem. The director wanted her to go to MENA next day, but the 14,000 km trip from Brisbane would not have been possible. Ready for the most important audition of her life, she asked me to come to Maastricht the next day to audition, but since I lived in Brisbane, it took an extra day. Mirusia said she had only 48 hours to book an international flight, choose her song, and get ready for the big chance. The young singer just won the prestigious Dame Joan Sutherland Opera Award, making her the youngest person to ever receive the honor. She packed her bags and flew across continents with fierce drive, even though Mirusia had already been accepted. You told André he was a fake caller. One account says that Mirusia auditioned for André the very next day. She was a recent graduate of the Queensland Conservatorium of Music. When she started this trip, Mirusia didn't know much about Rieu's global reputation. I only knew him because my mother worked in a Dutch retirement village. He was still relatively unknown in Australia at the time, she said in interviews later. This showed the leap of faith she had taken by flying halfway around the world. Mirusia had time to think about this amazing event during the long flight. Just a few days before, she had been working on a normal classical career in Australia. Now she was flying to meet a conductor who had found her through her aunt's email and a review on a website. The moment André heard her voice, he knew she was the one. When Mirusia got to the Netherlands, she went to Mary for an audition. André Rieu's private recording studio was the perfect place for her voice to soon be praised by the greats. This moment became a special part of the story of Mirusia 2 days later. Mirusia performed 2 songs at her recording studio in Mari that sealed the deal right then and there. One account said the songs she chose would stay secret, but it was clear how powerful they were. There was instant chemistry between the young Australian soprano and the Dutch violinist, and it wasn't just musically. We clicked right away before I even started singing, Mirusia remembered of their first meeting. This quick connection showed that musical chemistry went beyond technical skill, and he made his decision after listening. He told Mirusia she had one of the most beautiful voices he'd ever heard. Coming from such a talented musician meant a lot. The audition went better than most classical musicians could have imagined. I left Maastricht with a contract, Mirusia says, still amazed at how quickly everything happened. A week after André's first call, she was back in Australia with a signed contract to tour the world with his orchestra. This one-of-a-kind audition process led her down a different path than the usual one. Getting a job in classical music, she worked with him for 10 years and went behind the scenes on the biggest stages in the world. What really goes on at André Rieu's practice? People may think that André Rieu's polished performances are easy, but they are the result of hours and hours of hard work. So much of his huge success comes from living in a world where beauty is the norm and orchestra members are held to very high standards. André Rieu is very different from the guy he is when he's not on stage. As a photographer, I'm a perfectionist, but André is the best of the best in every way, says someone who has seen his training sessions and written about them. His demanding personality shows up in strange ways. He flew all 4 members of the Seekers from Australia to the Netherlands to make sure they practiced exactly the way he wanted. During rehearsals, he kept an eye on everything and double-checked everything, from the music arrangements to the dance moves. Not only the music, but also the entry and exit from the stage had to be perfectly choreographed. One observer said he was in charge of all the technical details himself during sound checks. He wore a special jacket and often asked for small changes to be made to the lighting. André was open about his nerves before the show. I'm always nervous because I want to give a perfect performance with my orchestra every voice. He said this nerves come from his unwavering commitment to excellence is his practice motto, and he doesn't waste a second. His rehearsals show fans a whole different side of him. Fans can watch these rehearsals for free, and we love them because they let us see the maestro at work. One account said that these rehearsals show how hard he works, constantly talking to directors in the recording van backstage and sometimes checking in with his wife Marjorie, whom staff called the boss. It takes an extraordinary amount of dedication for orchestra members of his orchestra to work with such a perfectionist and set clear goals. When he started his orchestra, I told them I wanted to practice for a whole year to build the atmosphere and sound. At first, he couldn't pay them, but he promised by the end of the year we'd be successful. To keep the group together, they now have to follow certain rules. They're only there for me. They don't play in other union orchestras because he doesn't want to make enemies within the orchestra. I don't want anyone in the orchestra to think we're against each other, he says. He balances his high expectations with generous rewards. I pay them very well, he says, and I'll take care of them when they're old and make sure they have everything they want. This includes sharing luxuries when I fly the Concorde, and they fly the Concorde. The orchestra grew from 12 members to 60 to 75 musicians on bigger stages, and relationships were valued over technical skill. I couldn't do anything without them, and they couldn't do anything without me. When we travel, we have a great time together. The musicians had to be fully involved in every performance, smiling, responding to the audience, and following choreographed moves. This led to a very high level of accuracy, as the music timing was almost perfect. Mirusia Louwerse stepped into this one-of-a-kind mix of high standards and a family-like feel. When she joined Rieu's group, she saw for herself how his unique approach to music worked with the strict rules and close-knit atmosphere. Mirusia talks about how much it costs to tour with André Rieu. Classical crossover concerts are a glamorous world, but they have a complicated financial system that performers rarely talk about freely. Mirusia Louwerse's 10 years in André Rieu's orchestra have given her a unique view of how to make a living in this niche music business. Mirusia and André Rieu's contracts are very different from most ensemble contracts because they were negotiated in a way that most artists don't talk about. Rieu has about 110 full-time employees and another 100 freelancers. This is a rare example of a full-time job in the classical music business, where most musicians work on short-term or gig-based contracts. Rieu has been very clear about what he wants. They're only there for him. They don't play in other bands or teach music. Ensured that he could focus on writing music and gave him job security, which is hard to find in an unstable industry. When Mirusia joined the orchestra, she walked into a carefully managed financial system. This gave her stability that is rare in a classical performing career. She remembers her hasty decision after her first audition. It was unbelievable that I left Mric with a contract. Rieu's contracts are unique because they bind him to his musicians for life. He is honest about it. I pay them very well and generously and makes the big promise, I'll take care of them when they get old and make sure they have everything they want. Treating them like family builds loyalty that goes beyond a normal job relationship. How André Rieu sold his voice in a smart way, showing that he was more than just a master at recording amazing performances. He called Mirusia and promoted her in a way that shows how to bring classical music to a wider audience. Soon after joining Rieu's orchestra, she became Australia's angel, making them a great match. That showed off both her beautiful voice and her unique background. The marketing plan paid close attention to how Mirusia looked. She always wore long, flowing dresses that made her look beautiful when she performed with Rieu. This style of art and the way the camera caught her face as it changed in emotional moments made a whole package that drew people in from all over the world. These accomplishments show that Rieu can show off Mirusia's talent through smart song choice, visual presentation, and multi-platform distribution. The result is a worldwide sensation that goes beyond the limits of classical music.